You know, I'm Alex. I'm 28 years old now, and I've built a good life for myself. It's a life I've built from scratch, brick by painstaking brick, on a foundation that was supposed to be stable but crumbled under me when I needed it most. This isn't a story I tell often, not the whole thing, not the raw version. It's about betrayal, yes, but it's also about figuring out what family really means when the people who are supposed to be yours act like strangers, or worse. For most of my childhood, it was just me and my mom. My dad wasn't around, left before I have any real memories of him. Mom worked hard, sometimes two jobs, just to keep us afloat. We weren't rich, not by a long shot, but we had what we needed mostly. I respected her hustle. Even if she was often tired, distant, and prone to snapping, I figured that was just the stress of doing it all alone. I was a quiet kid, mostly kept to myself, focused on school, and later on figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. I found a passion for working with my hands, the kind of intricate, demanding work that required specific skills and expensive tools. That became my goal: save up, go to a good trade school, buy my own equipment, build something real. Things started to change when I was maybe 15 or 16. That's when Rick came into the picture. He was charming, I guess you'd say. Easygoing, laughed a lot. A little too easygoing, maybe. He had two kids, Mark, who was about my age, and Sarah, a couple of years younger. Within months, they were practically living at our place. And less than a year after Mom met Rick, they were married. That's when a real shift happened. Overnight, it felt like I became a ghost in my own home. Mom, the woman who used to lecture me about the cost of electricity, suddenly had an endless supply of cash for Rick and his kids. New clothes, new phones, trips to theme parks I'd only ever seen on TV. Mark wanted a top-of-the-line gaming rig. Done. Sarah decided she was into competitive horseback riding. Suddenly, there was money for lessons and gear I didn't even know existed. Meanwhile, I was still wearing sneakers with holes in them and using a beat-up old desk I'd salvaged from curb. It wasn't just about the stuff, though that stung. It was the energy, the attention, the priority. Every conversation, every plan, every dollar seemed to revolve around Rick, Mark, and Sarah. My existence was an afterthought, a footnote. When I turned 17, my birthday was a microwave cake and a pair of socks. Mark's 17th birthday, just a few months later, a huge party that cost more than Mom made in 2 months, and Rick helped chip in for a used car that was still nicer than anything I'd ever ridden in regularly. But the most concrete symbol of being pushed out came when they decided Mark needed more space for his gaming setup. My bedroom, the only truly private space I'd ever had, was deemed the most suitable spot. I was told, not asked, that I'd be moving into the tiny, musty storage room off the garage. It barely fit my bed and a small dresser. Mark didn't even use my old room for gaming all the time. I'd hear him in there blasting music or just hanging out with friends, loud as hell. It felt like they weren't just taking my room, they were taking my space in the family, confirming I was the odd man out. All through this, I kept my head down and worked. 2 part-time jobs, sometimes 3 during the summer. Waiting tables, stocking shelves, anything I could get. Every single dollar I earned went into a separate savings account I'd opened, a fund specifically for my future. This wasn't just college money. This was my escape fund, my trade school tuition, the down payment for the tools I needed to start my career as a certified technician. This was my independence packaged in crisp bills and digital numbers. By the time I graduated high school, 18 years old and bone-tired, I had scraped together $12,000. $12,000 of sweat, missed weekends, and saying no to everything. It felt like a fortune, like my golden ticket. I was proud of it. Incredibly proud. A few weeks after graduation, I was getting ready to apply to a specialized trade program. I needed to check the exact balance in my account to fill out the application forms. I logged in, and my blood ran cold. The balance was zero. Exactly $0.00. My first thought was a hack, a mistake. I frantically called the bank. They were polite, efficient. They confirmed a withdrawal had been made. A single, large withdrawal by the primary account holder. My mom. I drove home, hands shaking on the wheel. Found her in the living room, watching TV with Rick. I tried to keep my voice steady, but it cracked. Mom, I said, holding my phone. My savings account. It's empty. Did you take my money? She didn't even turn off the TV. Just sighed like I was interrupting something important. Yes, Alex. I used it. Used it. My $12,000. Used it. Used it? For what? That was for my school. My future. She finally looked at me, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. Well, we had some unexpected expenses come up. Rick needed a little help with some things for his venture. And Mark had some fees. Rick's venture. Mark's fees. Not my future. Not my hard work. Not my escape. My money, the product of years of grinding, was used to bail out Rick's latest questionable scheme or cover Mark's entitlement. You took all of it? I asked, the air feeling thin. It's family money, Alex, she said, turning back to the TV. We all have to contribute when needed. You're part of this family. That was the moment. The exact, painful moment I understood I wasn't part of her family anymore. Not in the way a son should be. I was a resource. A piggy bank to be cracked open when Rick or her stepkids needed something, regardless of my own needs or dreams. The anger burned hot and fast, but underneath, it was just a gaping wound of hurt. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at her, at Rick sitting there silently, and a cold, hard knot formed in my stomach. You're unbelievable, I said, my voice flat. I turned, walked to my little room off the garage, packed a single duffel bag with some clothes and essentials, and walked out the front door. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't look back. I ended up on Liam's doorstep. Liam, my best friend since middle school. He lived in a small, slightly chaotic apartment with a couple of roommates near the community college campus. I called him from a gas station down the road, choked up, and just said, "Can I crash at your place?" Something happened. I can't go back. He didn't ask questions. Yeah, man. Come on over. Doors unlocked. Walking into Liam's apartment felt like breathing fresh air after years in a suffocating room. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, loud with roommates playing games, and felt incredibly real. I dumped my duffel bag, and Liam just looked at me. You okay? I shook my head. No. He didn't push. Just nodded and said, all right, we'll figure it out. Want a beer? Those first few weeks were rough. I felt completely unmoored. My plan was gone. My money was gone. The person who was supposed to be my safe harbor had sunk my boat. The resentment was a physical weight. Liam was a rock. He listened without judgment, offered pragmatic advice. Okay, so the trade school is out for now. What's plan B? And didn't let me wallow for too long. They took your money, man, he'd say. Don't let them take your future too by giving up. I found a job doing manual labor, grueling work that paid just enough to contribute to rent and food at Liam's place, and start building up a new savings account, one with no other names on it. It wasn't glamorous, and it was miles away from the specialized career I planned, but it was mine. Every paycheck felt like a small victory, a piece of my future reclaimed. I enrolled in a couple of night classes at the community college, just basic stuff, trying to keep some momentum going. It was a slower, harder path than I'd imagined, but at least I was moving forward. Contact with my mom was minimal. A text every few months, always the same theme. Thinly veiled attempts to get me to come back home, or complaints about her own financial struggles, often hinting that I should be helping out now that I was on my own. Never an apology, never an acknowledgement of what she did. I kept my responses short, emotionless, or didn't reply at all. What was there to say? I did get updates, though, through my Aunt Carol. She's my mom's sister, a good woman caught in the middle. She called to check on me, genuinely worried. She'd also let slip bits of information about Mom's life with Rick and the kids. Rick still wasn't holding down a steady job, bouncing between ventures that always seemed to need money. Mark and Sarah were still living large. Sarah got a brand new car for her 18th birthday. Mark was talking about some elite business coaching program that cost a fortune but was supposedly his path to millions. Aunt Carol sounded tired when she talked about it, sometimes frustrated. It reinforced that nothing had changed. The Step family was still the priority, still the financial sinkhole. Years passed. I finished community college, transferred to a state university on a partial scholarship I worked my butt off for, and eventually graduated with a degree in a related field, even if it wasn't the exact specialization I'd originally planned. I landed a decent job, got my own small apartment. I was paying my bills, building savings, and finally felt like I had solid ground under my feet. The dream hadn't died, just changed direction slightly. I was independent, truly independent, and it felt amazing. Then the phone rang. An unknown number. Hesitantly, I answered. It was Mom. Her voice was overly cheerful, a tone I hadn't heard in years. Alex. Oh, it's so good to hear your voice. I kept my tone neutral. Mom, what's up? The pleasantries vanished quickly. Well, honey, I hate to ask, but we have a situation. It's about Mark. My gut clenched. Mark. Of course it was about Mark. What about him? Well, he has this incredible opportunity, a chance to get into this very exclusive program. It's exactly what he needs to really make something of himself. But it's very expensive. Very, very expensive. She sighed dramatically. We're a little short. I waited, knowing where this was going. So, she continued, her voice shifting to that practiced, pleading tone, since you're doing so well now. Alex, we were really hoping you could help us out. We need $15,000. $15,000. My mind reeled. She stole $12,000 from me. Money that was my actual path to making something of myself. And now she was asking for $15,000 for Mark's exclusive program. The sheer audacity took my breath away. $15,000? I repeated, just to make sure I'd heard right. Yes, just $15,000. It's a lot, I know, but this is crucial for Mark's future. It's family, Alex. We help family. The family line. Again, the woman who treated me like dirt for years, who stole my future, was lecturing me about family obligations. Mom, I said, my voice dangerously low. You stole $12,000 from me. Money I worked years for, that was supposed to fund my career. You took every single penny and gave it to Rick and your stepkids. She waved it away, figuratively. That was different. We needed that then. This is about Mark's future. You're doing well now. You can afford it. No, I said firmly. I can't afford it. Not for Mark. Not for any of you. Mark isn't my responsibility. You're his mother. Rick is his father. Rick is doing everything he can, she snapped, her voice rising. And Mark is your stepbrother. He's family. You don't just abandon family. Abandon family? I almost laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Is that what you call what you did to me? Abandoning me the second your perfect little step-family came along? Stealing from me? Treating me like I didn't exist? The conversation spiraled. She went into full victim mode, dredging up every supposed sacrifice she'd ever made for me as a child. Basic parenting tasks framed as heroic deeds. I stayed calm, stating the facts. You did what a parent is supposed to do, Mom. You didn't do me a favor. And you certainly didn't earn the right to steal from me or demand money later. I ended the call, my hands shaking again, but this time with fury, not panic. But she didn't stop there. The manipulation campaign began. First, a barrage of texts about how I was breaking her heart, ruining Mark's life, tearing the family apart. Then, she enlisted the help of Aunt Carol. Aunt Carol called me a couple of days later, sounding hesitant. Alex? Honey, your mother called me. She's very upset. She said you're refusing to help Mark with his program. She says he really needs this. I sighed, rubbed my temples. Aunt Carol, Mom stole $12,000 from me when I was 18. She completely sidelined me for years while pouring money into Rick and his kids. Now she wants $15,000 for Mark. I laid it all out, the theft, the neglect, the current outrageous demand. Aunt Carol was quiet for a long time. Oh, Alex, I didn't realize it was that bad, she said softly. Your mother, she said the money back then was just a small amount, just for a little help with school fees for Mark and Sarah. She said you were being dramatic. A small amount? Aunt Carol, that was every dollar I had. It was my path to getting out and starting my career. And it wasn't just school fees. My mind clicked on something Mark had said in his text. Aunt Carol, did Mom ever tell you exactly what that $12,000 was for? There was a pause. Well, she mentioned Rick had a business setback, and Mark had gotten into some trouble. Something about needing to cover losses quickly. She was very vague. Just said she had to use some funds that were easily accessible. My gut twisted. Easily accessible funds. My money. So it wasn't even primarily for Mark's basic needs back then. It was to cover Rick's failure or Mark's trouble that Mom wanted to keep quiet. Aunt Carol's hesitant confirmation was the first major piece of the puzzle falling into place. The initial theft was even dirtier than I thought. Mom prioritized protecting Rick and Mark from consequences over my future. Then came Mark himself. He texted me. Heard you're being a prick about the money. Seriously, dude? It's just 15 grand. It's not that much for you now. Mom said you basically owe us anyway since she used your old money for me and Sarah before. The entitlement, the casual cruelty, the direct acknowledgement of the past theft, it was all there. In that line, use your old money for me and Sarah before, confirmed what Aunt Carol hinted at, while adding a layer of twisted justification. This validated everything, but also made me more suspicious about this $15,000 program. I called Aunt Carol back. Aunt Carol, what exactly is this program Mark needs $15,000 for? Mark messaged me. He said Mom used my old money for him before, and I owe them now. He says 15 grand isn't much for me, and he needs it quick. Aunt Carol was quiet again, then her voice dropped. Alex, be careful. I heard things, not from your mother, but other family members hear things. Mark's been involved in some get-rich-quick stuff online. Heard he owes money, bad money, to people you don't want to owe. The pieces slammed together. $15,000. Needed quickly. Mark's trouble. Owed money. A shady online venture. The exclusive program was a lie. The $15,000 wasn't for his future. It was to bail him out of a serious, possibly dangerous debt incurred through illegal or scam activity. My mother wasn't just enabling entitlement. She was trying to make me complicit in covering up Mark's potentially criminal behavior and protecting him from loan sharks. The final straw was a voicemail from Mom. It was a masterpiece of emotional blackmail. Weeping, wailing about how I was destroying the family, how Mark would be ruined, how I was a terrible son, how she regretted. She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication hung in the air. It was raw manipulation designed to gut me with guilt. For a split second, the old conditioning kicked in, that faint flicker of wanting her approval, that ingrained sense of responsibility for her feelings. But then I remembered Aunt Carol's hesitant voice, confirming the true nature of the original theft. I remembered Mark's entitled text, admitting the money was used for him because Mom thought I owed them. I remembered Aunt Carol's warning about the bad debt and loan sharks. And I remembered sitting on Liam's floor years ago, starting from zero, while Mom funded her stepfamily's lifestyle with my stolen future. That faint flicker of guilt died, replaced by a cold, clear certainty. I called Liam. Dude, I set my voice flat. She stole 12 grand from me for Rick's debt. Now she wants 15 grand to pay off Mark's loan shark from some scam. She just left me a voicemail trying to guilt trip me into it. Liam didn't hesitate. Block her, Alex. Block him. Block all of them. Right now. You don't owe them anything. Ever. They're toxic waste. Get them out of your life. He was right. Absolutely right. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about self-preservation. About refusing to be a perpetual victim, a lifeline for a family that had proven they would bleed me dry without a second thought. I hung up with Liam, took a deep breath, and I went through my phone. My mom's number. Blocked. Her email. Blocked. Mark's number. Blocked. Any social media accounts connected to them that I knew of. Blocked. I even sent a text to Aunt Carol, just a short one. Thank you for everything. I blocked Mom and Mark. I need space. We'll reach out later. She replied, I understand, Alex. Stay safe. You did the right thing. The silence that followed was deafening and incredibly, wonderfully peaceful. There was a pang of sadness, a sense of mourning for the mother I'd lost years ago, the one who existed before Rick and his kids. But it was overshadowed by the overwhelming relief. I had finally cut the cord. It wasn't a perfect ending, maybe. There was no big confrontation where she admitted everything and begged forgiveness. I knew that would never happen. There was no dramatic legal battle to get my money back. Too difficult, too painful, and honestly, not worth the stress years later. It was just severing the ties, protecting myself. That $12,000 hurt like hell, and it set me back years. The demand for $15,000 for Mark's shady debt was the twisted, unbelievable final act. But they taught me a lesson, one far more valuable than any trade school could have. They taught me that family isn't just blood. It's loyalty. It's support. It's not using people. I found my real family in friends like Liam, people who stood by me when the people who were supposed were stealing from me. I don't know what happened to Mark and his debt, or how Mom and Rick dealt with it. I never asked, I never looked back. Maybe she tried to contact me through other ways, distant relatives, old friends. If she did, the messages didn't reach me. My boundaries are up now, solid and reinforced. I lost a mother, a stepfather, and 2 step-siblings that day. But I saved myself, and that, I realized, was the most important future fund of all.